Hello, comrades. It's Premier Rever, and I am back at the Reverstan Motor Speedway, and we have made some modifications to the Speedway. We have put in 2 construction offices. So as you may have guessed from the title, we are going to do some construction office testing, just to see what's the best in a couple different scenarios. The first question that I have is, are educated workers, all of these people are highly educated, and I've just imported them. And these people are the third world immigrants, where you buy them with the dollars up here. Now they come in not so happy, and I did a little bit of a mini test. This doesn't take actually overly long, and they don't seem to contaminate each other's bus platforms. But during the test, what I want to do is put each of the bus platforms up here, right? Now I'm going to close these for a second because I want to spin around when I get up there, right? It's a little bit better view if I'm facing this direction. I can kind of see all the way down here, even though many of you won't if you're watching on a smaller screen. But the question is do that. So now the other problem that we have is when we import these educated workers, they come in a lot happier. So that's the other reason I want to keep an eye on these bus stops. Now I took off passengers and students, and because I don't want them clogging up the thing, even though this one says 2 students waiting for some reason, probably before, I must have been playing time for half a second there, but that shouldn't interfere with getting enough workers, right? So there we go. Students off here. Now hopefully they'll stay happy enough. I didn't want happiness to be an issue. So they each have a cinema, couldn't really fit it in the middle, but I'm hoping this just keeps the happiness enough that it's not an issue of escaping before the test is over, right? You may end up saying to yourself, well, it could be that these people are less happy. One of the reasons that I want to keep the bus stops open is so that we can see that, we always have about the same number of people. I don't think that the game runs, I think there's differences that are minute and a little bit random, and I'm not sure why. When I did the last test, it seemed like they both didn't do the same exact things, right? Like the buses didn't come at the same times and stuff like that. But we'll see. Okay, well, enough talking, right? Let's see. Are the smarter people faster at construction? Oh, I didn't even show you the construction thing. We're going to build just the regular old, I'll call it my favorite prefab that holds 75 workers. And it's just a tall, single building, I'll call it. So there we go. So that's what we're going to build, 2 of them. Now, I don't have construction cranes. Let me show you what's in each one of these. I don't have construction cranes, and that way it's a little bit more labor intensive. I do have an excavator, right? So they will have the excavator up there for those purposes. Okay. So let's close this, and ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's make sure they get off to the same start. Yep, there they go. Identical start anyway. And that's about all we can hope for, right? So as far as the people go, yep, there they go to the bus stops. Here, I'm going to put this one on this side, and I'm going to put this one on this side. And then we'll spin around, right? So now they're on the right side, if that makes sense. This is the smart workers over here. Let's just put this down here. And we will open up this one and put it down here and change our camera view so hopefully we can see the action as it unfolds, and we'll have a little chance of seeing what's going on down that end. Like I said, I can more or less make it out. But there we go. So we definitely have more workers on this bus platform at this moment. Now, whether that's going to affect things, we'll see. Neither one of them needs workers at this exact second, right? There we go. They both dropped off. Okay, well, I'm going to be quiet and let's just watch what happens. Okay, we're almost done here, and you can see it's a pretty resounding win at this point for the educated workers. So I don't know what I expected, and I'm not sure if it doesn't have to do with, something else. Like, in other words, but in any event, it's not an invalid test, right? Like, because if you have less happy, uneducated workers, are they actually slower? And I'm just going to pause it. There we go. As soon as they're done. So if we take a look, we have this many people. So, without this many people, we have this done. We have 53 workers, where here we only had 37. Now, another thing, I don't know if you guys noticed it, if we're talking about efficiency, did you notice that it's really, once they got into the swing of things, only one bus was really the only, each one of them just had a bus driving back and forth. They didn't use both buses. So I think what's happening is they're looking for people each time to fill this up. So what also happens is I think they go and get their, like right now, let's say they would say, oh, okay, look, I need 32 more people. Hey, I have 32 people. Let me go get them. So then it goes back and he gets 32 people. But in the meantime, these guys might have stopped working and it drops way down. And then they, quote, only got 32 people. So there's some mechanism along those lines, even if I'm not 100% right, that's causing, these guys not to just keep them maxed out, right? Like there's, at times this was lower, but they still should have gotten more people from here each time, right? So it's almost like the people are handled like the gravel, where they go, oh, look, there's only 5 tons of gravel there. Let me go get it. Not realizing that they should go get more gravel. They do that with the concrete and asphalt sometimes. All right, so in any event, a pretty significant difference. I want to redo the test here for a second. Let's come over here. And we'll put this guy over here, and we'll put this guy over here. And I have some buildings off to the side. And what I'll do is I'm going to take all of the people out of this one, right? This is all my educated workers, and I want to switch them around. Now, I'm not sure if these buildings are full because I've done a couple tests. There we go. So just before I forget, so this is where our new immigrants are going to go. And this is where our new educated people are going to go. So let's empty this one out as well. There we go. All right. So educated, go there. Immigrants, go here. Let's go back up to here. Well, let's come to here first. Well, that doesn't really matter because I think once I demolish the building. There we go. So neither one of those have a thing. And, yep, demolish you. And, yeah, demolish you. All right, let's play forward enough time that those guys get demolished. And we should come up and do the same thing to their roads. There we go. And then let's not auto build from dollars. That's one of the trickiest parts about doing this test, is to not accidentally auto build. And yes, there was a take or two where they were auto built, right? Yeah, we'll go back a little bit. There we go. Now what I've been doing, just for the sake of, getting it done a little bit quicker, is just building these roads. So we'll play it long for enough that we got that. Okay, so there's no workers. How are these guys doing? Yeah, we lost one. Yeah, I guess we can these were just regular people that I invited here. Now, the other thing about keeping, the bus stops open was to just see, I didn't notice any cross-contamination, if you know what I mean. So it does seem to be working. So in the last test, these were the educated, and they won, right? And that's this side. So we're going to go ahead in this one, right? And we're going to buy the third world immigrants. There we go. And then on this side, we're going to buy the highly educated people. There we go. Okay, so we should be ready as soon as we assign these construction offices to the test. All right, let's just back up this time. We'll come here and we'll say, okay, you work on that one, and you work on this one. All right, let's make sure they get off to an equal or somewhat start. We'll spin back around in a minute. All right, ready, set, 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, there goes our concrete trucks. They both got off to an equal start, so we'll head back down here. And just like the last time, I will be quiet and we will fast forward. Let's get into the perfect spot. Let's move this over a little. And then we'll open that up. No, we want this open, don't we? Yeah, let's close these construction offices. Yeah, put this guy where you guys can see the red bar as we're fast forwarding. All right, there we go. Let's see how it goes this time. Well, it's looking like the smart workers absolutely crushed them this time. Now, the only question I have in my mind is how much of that is due to happiness and how much of that is due to intelligence. In other words, I think we'd almost have to let these guys get their happiness up before we could assume for sure. Now, once the test is officially over, I want to go back down and look at what their happiness is, like make sure it's not an issue. But the numbers of workers were similar enough given the differences, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh, there we go, pause. All right, so there we go. So that time they just absolutely crushed them. I've been looking at these work days, by the way, just as a, how close are they? So 114, like that's a bigger win than the last time having switched tracks. So there's just no doubt for some reason, these guys definitely, see, look, and their happiness really wasn't that high. Now, as far, and they, did they spend more time going to get their happiness up as possible? But it's not like, it's not like they weren't here. So the question is, do we set it up some point in the future to decide the difference between the two? Right? I think we should. So let me see what I can do to get everybody happy, right? I might even go back to our other map where we had more people. So let me pause it and just see what happens if I run time forward. Can I get everybody in here a little bit happier, especially if they don't have so much work to do? Like I'll take off this assignment here for both of them, and we'll just see if I can't get them up to full happiness. All right, I'll be back in a minute, or 10, whatever it takes me. Okay, guys, I am not waiting any longer. You can see it's months later in the game, and these guys still are just stuck on this. I even took people off of the bus platform, so nobody would wait at the bus platform. Let me put that back on here real quick just so we don't forget when we go to start the next test. Actually, the next test is already saved, and I probably didn't need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'll pause the video in a second here, but I've noticed that if we, this is on the, and this is one of the reasons I'm also not waiting, is we're starting to get plus 21 kids here. Now they are basically educated. So if we come back over here, notice that it only says 3. I'm not sure what's up with that, but if you notice, we're starting to get people, it's been so long that people are dying over here. I did end up putting another sports complex in at one point because these people weren't getting enough sports. But I really honestly don't know. There's no reason that these people shouldn't be getting food. I don't know if it's just a mechanism of the game to slow down how fast they get their happiness back. Like, do you have to satisfy them for a period of time? But I mean, it's been, I forget exactly when I started fast forwarding, but it's been a while in game at least. And these numbers have just sort of stagnated. So here's what I have to say about it. If you're going to, have workers who are, not so smart, definitely if you buy these immigrants, you're going to struggle with just even getting their happiness up. So I know that this wasn't a perfect test because we can't say for sure whether or not it was the happiness that caused the problem or whether it was their intelligence. But I would definitely say that happy, educated people, at least in our 2 tests, definitely got the buildings built quicker. So, definitely keep your people happy and keep them educated. And maybe one day I'll figure out a way to do a test, where there's happy, uneducated people, right? So, in any event, there we go. Well, look, this is ticking down, but it's a mess. Okay, guys. Well, let me pause the video real quick, and then I will come back after I reload into our next test. Okay, welcome back to test number 2. So this one is going to be against 2 tower cranes. I'm actually going to leave, well, no, we're just going to open up the tower crane. So this guy, well, I guess it's probably better to do it in here. So this crane is the biggest tower crane, the fastest tower crane at 95, right? So the thing will be is you have to take the tower crane out with an open haul trailer, right? So that will slow the process down slightly versus the road crane. And in the other one, I'll show you in a second, I bought this LZ100, which is the fastest speed level. And also it's a pretty fast one as far as 92 kilometers an hour. So in theory, this road crane will get out there faster. However, once the tower crane gets set up, it will be much quicker. Now also, I'm not sure if the tower crane being on the job site will mess it up, but we'll see. So maybe like in other words, does it take longer to come get the tower crane? Do you have to get it off the job site? But we'll see. I think these cranes stay on to the very end in this particular construction, but we'll see. All right, so ready? Let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, they're off to a similar start. One went out with a little different order there, but we'll see what happens. All right, so let's do, now in this case, by the way, these people are all the same, right? Now they have a few more educated. I guess it's just a random chance when you purchase workers. So we're going to assume that, all's fair, right? Life's not going to be that balanced when you go to do this in real life. So I guess my test doesn't need to be that perfect either. So I'm going to do something similar where we'll fast forward most of this. I'll put this guy down here and we'll put this one over here and we'll just see and watch what happens. Let's try to get into a nice view position again. All right, there we go. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully this, we don't see a huge issue with the employees, right? I'm just hoping that stays pretty even with the number of workers. But let's see what happens. But that happened so quick, I wasn't even ready to unmute it. I had to go turn off the noise-making video that I was watching for keeping a half an eye on. So in any event, look, the one with the road crane definitely beat this one hands down. Right now, I'm sure in different circumstances that might have been different, but when I first started playing, I always bought the road cranes, and people said, no, you got to get the tower crane. It's so much faster. I think on a bigger job, like if we were going to build a radio station or something like that, that's true. But I've always felt that like the fact that that crane gets out there on its own makes a difference. And there it goes. At least, again, I know that you could pick the test apart and say, well, no, in this circumstance and that circumstance. But in this circumstance, when you're a fair distance away, you know, which I think this is a normal construction distance, maybe a little far for some people. But there you go. So I think you're better off with the road crane unless you're probably doing a bigger job, where this guy with his higher speed would have caught up eventually, right? If it was a matter of, you know, everything else being equal and it was a bigger job, this guy didn't even get started barely is the problem, right? And he would have gone through here lightning quick. Other than that, yeah, I mean, it was pretty even as far as both of them. This guy got a little bit ahead because they had more workers, but you know, you could definitely see that the road crane has its place in the world. And I would say for smaller jobs, definitely worth considering it. They both take up a space in your construction office, so there's no advantage there. Like if this sat off to the side and you can have an extra vehicle, then it would be worth it. But yeah, use the road cranes, I would say, on smaller jobs, potentially. I mean, again, but just don't rule out the road crane as being superior, potentially, in some circumstances. All right, well, I'm going to pause the video again, and we're going to set up another final experiment. And this one is going to be, are you better off with your construction office that you're sending out being close to the supplies or not? And I'll show you that in a second. Welcome back to the third and final construction test. Okay, this is actually, it's a couple times I've gone through this trying to get it right. One of the things that happened was like these guys from here. So one of the first things that happened was I had that other house matching this one over here, and the construction workers just went right to the job site. And that really made, I mean, if you have everything there, including construction workers, then the supply is just like a non-issue. In other words, this guy is going to win even though the construction area is far away. So one of the things that often happens to me in the game is that, well, nothing is that close, you know, like the people are coming where we have to go get them. So I built this, is right about in the middle of the track. So it's about an equal distance from this end as it is from that end, right? So really there should be no unfairness at that point. I had marked out the middle, which is where in the other series, this gas station was pretty close to exactly the middle. So you can see I've even tried to even out a little bit the bus stops to make sure they're on the closer side. You know, this one's a little bit further maybe from there, but I don't think if it's that close, it's that. And then when I also was trying to do the radio test, people started getting unhappy and leaving. So yeah, I would like to, so I built, you know, enough supplies. Now these people shouldn't be able to get across, right? There's no connections between the two. So there's, you know, it should be pretty good. I think we're going to be fine. I just don't want to lose the people to unhappiness and have that affect the test, because that wouldn't happen during my regular playthrough normally anyway. All right, so this guy is going to build to start out. Let's see, is he assigned to it yet? Yes. So see, 0 kilometer construction office is going to build this flat down here. Then the second part, this is actually 2 tests, I guess you could say, is that they're going to build a bigger construction and see if it makes a difference, right? Because I have a feeling that on a bigger construction, the guy on this side where the materials are closer, they're going to run back and forth much more often. Now, another thing to talk about, and both of them are even, if we come here and look at our mechanisms, I added another mixer to the mix. or actually 2 mixers, right? Because I noticed that the concrete mixers are a pretty big issue. So we have 3 open hauls and 2 dumpers. So you could argue that maybe getting more dumpers is better, but you do, if you look at this, you know, like in the beginning, you need the dumpers, and then here you need more, in some ways, there's more separate trips, I think, to get these boards and all this stuff. So either way, you could go back and forth. But this is a pretty good setup for building that technical university, and it shouldn't be too bad. Now, we also have a tower crane in each one, and that's another reason for maybe having the extra open haul, so he can get that tower crane down there in a timely manner. Let's just make sure, yep, this guy's assigned. So I think we are ready to go this time. Oh, I also moved this guy, I already said that, I think. Moved this guy out so that if you look at his path, he shouldn't go to those construction sites any longer. So, or they shouldn't go to that construction site any longer. All right, so here we go. Let's get on with it. Well, wait, let's do one thing. Let's open this guy up over here. And I also want to keep an eye on the bus stop. So this bus stop is for this side, just to make sure that we're not having people problems. I don't think we will, certainly not during this first test, but we might during the other test. All right, there we go. So now we've got a view of the center. And I think I'm just going to more or less stay down this end. You know, it's probably the more exciting end because this is where all the supplies are. So there we go. All right, ready again. And 3, 2, 1, start your engines. Yep, this guy started out going. Let's see, make sure this guy got started fine. Yep, they're both started fine. And we shall see what happens. So I'll be quiet for a little while, and we'll come back and see who builds it first. I don't expect this one to take too long. Okay, we are neck and neck coming down to the line. And it's certainly, you know, this guy lost all his workers, but he's got his crane still pushing things forward. And really, you know, at this point, I mean, unless something happens to dramatically change it, this guy is a bit ahead, right? 45 versus 61, but, you know, given slightly, and it did, you know, I've watched as best I could. You know, it definitely seems like, you know, they're just very even. Now, this guy got a couple extra workers, you know, that can make a difference. You know, it could make a big difference. I don't know. Sort of depends on your circumstances. But I would say that there's no significant difference in the two. Like, I think you know, it really just doesn't make that much difference because by the time this guy ran out of stuff, the rest of the stuff was there. So that there was one time that I think there was a slight where this guy had gotten all his materials, but then this guy didn't. So this guy did end up winning anyway, the one that has all the supplies closer, but really not by much. And I think you could even blame that on, you know, sheer luck. I bet you if you ran it again, it might be closer, it might be further. If you're worried about a couple seconds there, yeah, I mean, it's better to have the materials there, but it's not arguably that much different. All right, so let's let these guys completely reset for a second here. And make sure all their vehicles are back parked at home.
Yep, here comes this guy's final bus. Yep, this guy looks like everybody's parked up, so we'll just wait for this bus to get back. And then we will assign the next test. We'll pause it again and then assign it. Nope. You going to get fuel? No, you're just parking. Okay, everybody seems settled. So let's pause it. And we'll take this guy and assign him to do the bigger job. Now in this one, I believe definitely having the materials closer would make a difference. So it's kind of interesting that it's actually more important. Oop, I need to select this guy. And yes, there we go. All right, so now Technical University is being built, which is a much longer job where I'd expect this guy's advantage in materials to really come in. All right, so let's close this and this, and I'll open this one. And I will open this one. Good. Okay. So 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So let's keep an eye on what happens. But I would expect things to be pretty even in the very beginning. And then as time goes on, I would expect this guy to pull ahead. So let's see if that's what actually happens. Okay, as we finish up here, I wanted to point something out. I don't know if you guys had noticed or not, but what I noticed was that the buses on this side. Oh, okay, let's pause it. So there we go. It's way better to have your materials close on a bigger building. But anyway, the biggest thing I noticed is that the whole entire time, this side had more workers, plenty of workers, and these buses were only picking up a smaller percentage and bringing them down here each time. And at first I thought, well, wait a minute, what's going wrong? But then if you notice, like if he brought any more, like right now is a good time to stop it. Like they're out of concrete anyway. So the game is actually trying to balance how many workers it brings out here, I think, with how much stuff you have on the job site, right? So this guy on this side ran out of stuff as well periodically, but they were constantly taking a lot more workers and bringing them over here, which is really, I mean, hats off to the developer, right? Like that's a level of sophistication that you wouldn't necessarily expect. There's a smart person, in my opinion, who's developing this game, because now maybe that's through trial and error and complaints, but at the same time, I like that because that means when you go to, let's say you do have a big construction site someplace, you're not just going to steal all of the workers that are possible and bring them here. You're only going to bring the workers that are necessary for the amount of materials that you're getting in. So I hope that makes sense. So yes, and again, back to our actual conclusion. Yeah, it's definitely better when you have a bigger construction site. I guess it's always better to have the materials closer, but what I would say is it's not so critical, right? When they were in our first test, yeah, this guy won, but not by much. Slightly different circumstances, and maybe he would have lost, but so it was kind of more or less a tie in the first one. So yeah, when you're doing smaller ones, and I think the reason for that is that it really doesn't make a significant difference in getting the first materials there, right? They both have to travel about the same amount. I would bet on something like a bus stop. This guy might even have a bit of an advantage because those bus stops just have if we look at what it takes to construct one of those, they just have, let's close some windows here. They just have a bunch of little truckloads going out to them, right? Either one. It's hardly ever a case where you're going to need more than one truck but yet it's 3 separate phases. And in that case, this guy might have a little bit of an advantage because as they come back and they're sitting here, they are closer to the materials, right? Where that other guy might have to wait for his guy to come all the way back to send the next truck out if you got the first one done. But the fact that they sit there and wait for workers, like they load up until they have all the materials, or at least enough materials to get started, that fact kind of evens that out, right? Because no matter how fast this guy gets his first load out, they're still waiting on workers. So in some ways, I think workers is really kind of the key to the whole thing. If your workers are close to your construction site, that's as important as anything else, right? And then secondarily, I would say, yeah, get your materials there if you can. And if you're just doing a bunch of small construction, I really wouldn't worry about it too much because it's not going to make that much of a difference. The real difference comes in when you're doing these big construction sites. Try to get your materials closer if you can. Because one of my questions has always been is, well, fine, this is where we started our first town, right? Now we need to build something all the way out here. I don't necessarily want to build a whole supply chain right here, right, before I move on to the next place. So that question's come up in my mind quite a few times. But yeah, if you can get everything close, kind of obviously do it. But when you're making that decision to go build something over there, and it's just a small bus platform and train station, not train station, it's another construction station. It's really not going to save you that much to build all this stuff and then build it, right? It's really when you're going to do a lot of construction or big construction that matters. Now, at some point, there's only so far you can go away before you just can't get workers any further. And that's another different limit. I think it's about a 5-hour trip time that they're willing to go do. So there you go. So I don't want to make this video too long. And if you guys have any questions or comments, I know there's other ways that you could do all of this. And there's probably 1,000 other minuscule tests, but I just wanted to get an overall feel for what was going, kind of confirm some things I knew. If there was a surprise for me personally, I thought this guy would do a little bit better on the smaller building. And like I said, maybe he would still do better on an even smaller building. But as it turns out, it's pretty even, which is interesting to know in its own right, right? Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. I always welcome your comments. Take care and have a good day. Bye-bye.